Hello, and welcome to The Art of Flipping. These are 9 LPs that I found in a thrift store recently. I had plenty of time to look through them, and the prices were, quite frankly, dirt cheap. I plan to list these LPs for approximately $120, mostly on Discogs, and the listing prices would be a bit higher on eBay. When I was shopping in the thrift store, there wasn't any competition to go through these LPs. So it was very different than, say, a garage sale or a lot of estate sales, where it's kind of like a rugby scrum to go through something. So I figured it would be interesting to go through these one by one and talk about what creates value. So I'm going to ask, can you spot which one or two of the LPs would be the most valuable? And let me go through the LPs and show them to you, and then I'll show you the prices and my logic behind it. So you can spot LPs too on the fly without having to look things up, and certainly without having to use a scanner. I don't think there's a scanner on anything other than possibly this Handel Royal Fireworks Music LP. Let's go through them. There's the Shirelles, Tonight's the Night, original label, mono pressing from 1960. There's the Dave Clark 5, Coast to Coast. It's electronically reprocessed, and I've played it. I don't think it's one of the hidden true stereo variants. The Drifters, their greatest hits. This is a Canadian re-recording using the original artist, but recording stuff in stereo. The Indian Reservation by the Raiders from around 1971 with the solid red Columbia label, which is period appropriate. Johnny Cash, From Sea to Shining Sea with the Columbia 360 in excellent condition. Elvis GI Blues in VG to VG Plus. This is mono. It's an unlisted variant on Discogs. It's from 1960. Handel Fireworks Music by the New York Philharmonic, conducted by Pierre Boulez. It's still sealed. America History, their greatest hits, which is in excellent condition. And Merry Christmas by Bing Crosby. It's opened. It's the black label MCA, and it's in excellent condition. Let's go through these. What I'm going to do, I'm going to narrow down the candidates some by removing 3 of the least valuable LPs. 3 of these LPs would only sell for about $4 to $6 tops. The Raiders Indian Reservation. This one's got some condition issues, some scratches that would knock it down to VG. There are audible pops and clicks in the loud passages. So it really doesn't matter. This one made it to number 1 on the charts, and it wouldn't be very valuable even if it was in better condition. It'd be about $6 tops, because there are just a whole bunch of these around, and the Raiders were on their way out. Their big year was in 1965. This is kind of their swan song. Let's go to the next one. Johnny Cash, From Sea to Shining Sea. I'm going to put this one in my personal collection, possibly. I'm going to listen to it some and probably lot it up with some other Johnny Cash. You can get a lot of good Johnny Cash. This one is in at least VG, probably VG Plus condition. It's got the Columbia Red 360 stereo label, and it's probably only about $5. And finally, we have Dave Clark, Coast to Coast. Dave Clark 5 appeared on the Ed Sullivan Show more than any other British invasion act. I think it's a total of about 9 times. This one contains the hit Any Way You Want It, and it's an electronically reprocessed stereo. You'd really rather have the true stereo or possibly even the mono version. This one happens to be very warped. I didn't look at it carefully enough. But even if I had, it'd be, it's a $4 to $6 record. I'm not even going to sell this one. I'm going to use it in an experiment. Now, let's go and winnow down the next step. Hopefully, none of your choices were in the first 3 that I eliminated. The next 2 LPs that I'm going to eliminate are the Drifters, the re-recording in stereo. It's only about a $7 LP. This one's in excellent condition. And by excellent, I mean it may have some cuts. The other one that I would I'm going to discard at this point, is the sealed handle Royal Fireworks Music. It has value. It was worth picking up at dirt cheap prices. It'll sell for about $10. It'll list for about $10 before fees and all that stuff. You guys, all of the 4 remaining LPs are a winner to some degree or another. Hopefully, the 2 that you chose to be winners are still among these 4. I was surprised by the value of America History, which is their greatest hits LP. It's about $12. This LP is in excellent condition. Clean cover with just the slightest to the beginning of ring wear up there. I would say excellent record, excellent vinyl. $12. I was kind of surprised by that. So let's see if you have, both of your LPs are still in the remaining top 3. Coming in at number 3 is the king of rock and roll himself, Elvis, GI Blues. I say the king of rock and roll, but this is the first soundtrack LP that Elvis did, and basically that's the beginning and the end for a lot of the rock and roll fans. This is mono RCA pressing from 1960. It's a variant that's unlisted on Discogs. It grades VG on the vinyl, G plus on the sleeve. I'm going to put $14 on it, maybe about on Discogs, and it would be a little higher if it's eBay. But I think somebody that's more of a completist or might know something about, be looking for something that relates to the unlisted variant is more likely to buy this. So I'll probably set it over on Discogs and let it sit for. This is number 1 on the list, and by a really wide margin. The Shirelles, Tonight's the Night. Unlike the Elvis, the Shirelles did not spend 11 weeks at the top of the Billboard chart with this LP. In fact, this LP never even charted. Even more interestingly, except for the Shirelles' greatest hits, which I think reached number 67, any of the Shirelles LPs, the highest they ever got was like number 137. It has the hits. Let's take a look at this. It has the hits Tonight's the Night, the title track. It has Will You Love Me Tomorrow by Carole King and her husband. And it has Dedicated to the One I Love. All classics, all the individual tracks charted. So the big lesson here, and this is mono on the original label. It plays mostly VG plus. 2 tracks after Will You Still Love Me Tomorrow play more VG, and there's some noise in between the tracks in the separation grooves, but that noise really isn't audible when I play tested it. I'm going to put about $60 on this. There's solid comps, anything from between about 50 to 65 that are in the VG Plus range, and I'm going to put that I play tested it and explain which tracks play how. It's a fun one to listen to. It's got a lot of power. The moral of the story here is if you see any early R&B, and even better if you see an early blues LP. This is from 1960. LPs were not selling. It's during the Jim Crow era. The Shirelles 45s, the Shirelles were pioneers. It was a black producer, black female artist, white songwriters with strings, probably intended for a white pop audience. It's kind of like Berry Gordy before there was Berry Gordy in Motown. Crossover appeal was high. But people were not buying the LPs in droves, especially in R&B. But I would say that the sales of records started booming around the time of the British invasion, but maybe that's just my personal memory of it. So I'm going to put about $60 on this one, let's say. Now let's go to number 2, because it's quite interesting. Number 2 on the list is Bing Crosby's Merry Christmas. This is the MCA black label with the rainbow reissue from around 1973. It is in near mint or excellent condition. I don't see anything wrong with it at all. The cover is very nice, still in shrink wrap and slightly, it's been opened, but it's slightly damp stained down there in the bottom right corner. I'm putting $16 on it as a fair price. It's in really nice condition in the vinyl. Bing Crosby recorded White Christmas in 1942 for a movie called Holiday Inn. The female co-star was in the script to sing it without him. It became a duet, and Obviously, he had the lead role on it. It was re-recorded in 1947 because the master wore out. White Christmas, interestingly enough, is the single track that has been put on physical media the most. 25 million copies in North America, 50 million worldwide. And if you include the tracks on physical media that are on things like this LP, then you're up to 100 million. It is the king, not only of Christmas records, but without spoiling it for everybody else by identifying the most valuable LP, how many of you had the Shirelles in your choices for the 1 or 2 top picks? If you did, just tell me down in the comments. I picked the winner. Take care. Happy hunting out there. Thanks for sticking around to the end of the video. I'm going to list the LPs for somewhere between $119 to $125, mostly on Discogs. Thanks for supporting the channel. Happy hunting out there.